Many people may know Trevor Noah from his work on The Daily Show or his early years starting out as a comedian in Johannesburg, South Africa. Through his newest work, his memoir, titled Born a Crime, Stories from a South African Childhood, tells the story of growing up in a biracial family to a black mother and a Swiss father during the time of the apartheid regime. Under rule of such an oppressive regime, sexual acts between men and women of different racial categories were illegal. Yet despite all this, Noah's mother decided that she wanted to continue her pregnancy and have him, resulting in a life of a crime under apartheid rule. Being mixed in black family is something Noah mentions vividly, often using jokes to make light of his living situation. Though these jokes are prominent in the memoir, Noah seeks out more often to use subversive satire as mockery of the apartheid system, as an act of rebelling against such a system. By subverting the dominance through mockery, Noah attempts a reconciliation of marginalized groups, such as blacks and coloreds, against each other by laughing at the work of the white colonizer. Apartheid is a word created by Afrikaners, or rather white South Africans, who led the National Party to its height of power from 1947 until 1994. The use of subversive humor in regards to such authority is not a new theme in post-colonial literature and has been prominent in South Africa's comedy, theater, and literature since the ending of apartheid. The memoir itself uses the foundation of mimicry as means of mocking the system. As Noah's mother states in the memoir, "Don't fight the system, mock the system." Mockery is used as a subversive method to combat and belittle the system. Taking this from his mother, Noah used mockery of the system to build a successful career as a comedian. To discuss the ways Noah mocks the system, it is important to see how Noah mimics both the colonizer and colonized as seen in his comedy. Noah does this through the use of accents, like reenacting scenes of colonial domination, as seen in his recent comedy special on Netflix entitled Who's Afraid of the Dark. In his literature, Noah does a similar thing by taking on both the written role of a colonizer and colonized when discussing apartheid. He recalls the way in which the system turned blacks and coloreds against one another, leaving both racialized groups in a battle against each other rather than against the oppressor. In creating such a hypothetical dialogue in his work, he takes on both roles to highlight oppression while simultaneously enacting a rebellion within the text by noting how groups were turned against each other instead of standing with one another. Though of course, as a colored South African, Noah is a combination of the two races he imitates in his written and comical work, allowing him to openly discuss the ridiculousness of mockery in relation to the oppressor. This ridiculousness is attributed to his wit and one-liners within the text, labeling the memoir through written work of comedy, but not just a written work of comedy. A written work of comedy that satirizes the white colonizer and attempts to bring marginalized groups together rather than against one another. Having traveled to South Africa due to taking a class about apartheid to democracy, I became interested in Noah's story of growing up in a biracial family during the time of apartheid. After visiting an area close to Soweto, not far from where Noah was raised, it is apparent that not much has changed in the living conditions after the transformation to a democracy post-apartheid era. Most of the poor areas, which happen to be former homelands constructed by the government, there has been little movement of whites into these areas, although they are no longer restricted to blacks or coloreds. And being able to go to these places in South Africa, it's clear to see that the racial divide in South Africa is still apparent, even in the post-apartheid era. This relates to the rebellion in the text that Noah discusses, and the way that his use of subversive humor acts as a rebellion in order to bring marginalized groups together through satire, which allows the oppressed to gain a voice and gives minorities an opportunity to come together to subvert the work of their oppressor. Most of the secondary scholarly sources that I've used are written by South African writers or discuss works of South African writers that are using humor and mockery as a tool for belittling the system of oppression in the post-apartheid era. Most of these writers are not only using comedy but also theater as a way to add satire to colonialism in a way that emphasizes the oppressor and their voice and their story. To conclude my little TED Talk, Just a little bit of background information about the memoir. So Noah's book basically discusses his childhood in a biracial family growing up in different areas in South Africa, from areas that were homelands to a colored suburb in South Africa. His family had a hard time with money. He often felt out of place being both white and black, which also goes back to this idea of mockery, because although he's mocking the oppressor and the oppressed, Noah has the upper hand in the fact that he's both black and white. So in the sense that he is colored and mixed, he's also white, which gives him, which kind of reflects the way that he is able to talk about these issues. In my paper, I talk about how the text is most literally a comical work. Although it is a work of literature and it is a memoir, most of the satire is a formation of comedy like you would see on The Daily Show or Noah's comedy specials. So.